Okay. You've taken the host privileges away from me. Today I have with me a close friend, someone who I have known for close to 20 years now, Akshat Nayyar, who founded TruMeds and who has raised a significant amount of funding from a well-known name in the industry, InfoEdge. And I'm going to talk to Akshat today about his story and in particular about funding and this how do you fund your startup, what kind of different rounds are there, what do you mean by Series A, Series B, all these kinds of jargons that people talk about. And we will also get to know about Akshat's vision for TruMeds and his products and his entire journey. So without much ado, let's get in. So welcome, Akshat. First of all, I must tell you that this is an indeed a privilege and honor. And at the risk of sounding self-serving, I want to tell you that 15 years back, I had told you that Akshat, one day you would make it really big, and that day has come. I know you'll play it down, but I'm really very happy and proud of you. So Akshat was my junior, and we had a lot of interactions during our days. So Akshat started off from VNIT. He's a 2006 civil graduate. After that, he went to US and did his MS. Then he did his MBA from ISB, and he has worked in the pharma industry, and he started TruMeds with one of his co-founders. So Akshat, why don't you tell us about your journey? How did you found TruMeds? A little bit about your product and your story. I
Sure.
know your story well, but I would want all the others to know about it.
Sure. Thanks for the really generous introduction, Kartik. I don't think I deserve a lot of the praise that you give me, but I actually my father is a businessman. I grew up in a business family. Always was interested in exploring that avenue. Although being a little academically smart, it was always easier to find a job and make that short-term gain, right? So I kept focusing on that for a long time. Went to US with that same intention. Wanted to see the world, but along with that, salary सीधा जब मेरे सारे दोस्तों की salary 3 लाख रुपए साल की थी, तो मेरी 35 लाख रुपए साल की हुई थी, right? So that was the main intention. But where I used to struggle a lot with, and one of the reasons why it took a long time for me to get into this was finding the right idea and the right partner to work with. So had a lot of business ideas in the past, but eventually, while I was working at Abbott as head corporate strategy for them, we discovered this huge gap in the market. It almost felt like, why is everybody not doing this already? And even then, because just like a lot of people in this group, I had spent such a long time in the corporate ladder. It's a very tough decision to make. कि सब छोड़ छाड़ के अब मैं startup करूँगा, right? So a lot of things had to fall in place. We spent close to 9 months just evaluating. Well, my wife used to call it a fat man's diet. तो मैं वीकेंड पे या ऐसे हफ्ते में एक आध बार नहीं बोलते थे आज मैं फैट फ्री खाऊंगा, सैलेड खाऊंगा, वो वेट में कुछ फर्क नहीं आता है, बट वो आई एम ऑन अ डाइट हमेशा चलता रहता है. सो आई एम अ स्टार्टअप फाउंडर, was going on for about 9 months while I was still doing my full-time job and spending nights and weekends in just exploring the business idea. Eventually, we realized, and इसमें भी काफी journey थी actually. We went from a team of 4 co-founders to a team of 2 co-founders just because of lack of alignment. So fortunately, it happened early enough for us that we did not have to go through the pain of a breakup for long. But before we could quit our jobs, that was one of the lack of alignments we had. People had different priorities and wanted to quit jobs at different times in the year, which was just not working out. So that's how we ended up with me and my co-founder and a little bit of our life savings, deciding to start a business. And yeah, so it was last year Feb when we took on this journey, and it has been a roller coaster journey so far. It's in 2 years I think we have learned more than what we did in a decade of corporate life. But yeah, it's just the beginning. Abhi to just start hua hai.
So can you tell us about what your product is and where did this idea strike you? I know you've been wanting to do business for a long time. And how did you think about TruMeds? What is your value prop and how does it differ? How did you use your value proposition in getting the funding? What kind of questions people ask you? Because we see so many NetMeds, MedPlus, I think what Pharmacy, so many of these. So how is it that you know, in this such a crowded space, what kind of questions were asked? What exactly is your story in this?
Yeah, so we don't do what NetMeds and Pharmacy does. Unfortunately, we keep getting compared with that across the network that we deal with. But what happened is, while we were working in the pharma industry, we realized that pharma products दो तरह से बिकते हैं. One is the traditional route which everybody follows right now, like including I was doing that till the time I started TruMeds, where you basically your pharma company manufactures the product, has an MR who goes to a doctor and says, "Sir, मेरा दवाई लिखना." I've literally done that also, right? तुम जाकर के एक बुक लेके खड़े होते हो कार्डियोलॉजिस्ट के पास, सर मेरा ये वाला दवाई है, मेरा ये वाला दवाई है, thank you for your support. Because there is literally no differentiation in products anymore. 95% of the products that are sold in India are generics, off patent. Multiple companies are manufacturing the same active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? So how do you really differentiate or make sure that your product is sold? The primary way to do that is by influencing the channel or not the channel, but the doctor, the healthcare provider. The healthcare provider in India is pretty much the deciding factor here. In other countries like US and UK, the payer is the decider. The insurance provider decides, the pharmacy decides which brands to give you, because the prescription only carries the molecule name. If you have a fever, you'll only have paracetamol written on your prescription, not.
Okay. So, Akshat, so just to stop you there, I wanted to ask you, like, so, and because I'm not from this background, so when the doctor recommends, let's say, Benadryl, so he is recommending a specific, specific brand.
Exactly. Whereas, he's not recommending you. So what a doctor's primary role is, right? He's supposed to diagnose you to understand what you're suffering, what disease you're suffering from, and recommend the treatment for it, not the brand, right? And a lot of people might get offended by this, but the reality of the matter is that a brand is a choice that a patient can make based on many factors, or somebody else can make for that matter. But the doctor's primary role is to tell you what you're suffering from and what should be your treatment for it, which is what happens in most of the developed nations. One of the challenges in India is you can't enforce quality standards well in the pharmaceutical manufacturing space. So it makes sense for doctors to also write a brand which they know is a good brand, because the patient is not equipped to make that decision himself. But इस चक्कर में क्या हो गया? This has gone too far now. This has gone to the point where a 5 rupee medicine is sold at 100 rupees because all the players in between have to be incentivized. While that medicine can easily be made accessible to the patient for 20 rupees instead of 100 rupees. Because by just eliminating some of those layers, by letting the patient decide whether he wants to buy the 100 rupee brand, or in every other product, in every other sector, the consumer is the one who's deciding which brand I want to take. Right? Right. This is the only space where a brand is chosen by someone else. So that's where TruMeds comes in. So what we do is, let's say you're prescribed a paracetamol 500 from a different brand, let's say a Crocin for that matter. We will recommend you a brand which is from a top pharma company. So we don't deal with brands which are either not publicly listed or a multinational company. And we'll recommend you a brand which has the exact same composition, but a significantly lower price.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to do is, one of the reasons why people drop off, a large portion of people drop off taking their entire dosage is cost. Right? To stop seeing symptoms, you're like, kyun kharcha karna hai? For people, especially who have limited disposable incomes, healthcare burden is a huge part of their budget. So by being able to bring that same medicine cost down by 50-60%, you're able to allow the patient to take the entire dose of that medicine. So you're not really cutting the market, you're actually expanding the overall market by in terms of volume, but reducing the value for that. Yeah.
So if I get it right, your entire business is like, I am required to run, and the person who is mentoring me to run says, Kartik, go and buy this Adidas shoe which costs you 15,000 rupees.
Yeah.
And I come to you, you say, Kartik, I know your mentor has recommended this, but this is a shoe from Bata, which is exactly the same way this Adidas shoe is, but this costs only 2,500 rupees. So instead of me giving up on running, I buy the Bata shoe and become fit.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I wasn't. So this is really amazing. So how does how did this idea occur to you? Because you were in pharma industry and all. So how are you communicating this value proposition with your customers, and how did you manage to convince these investors to invest into your thing? So we want to understand the process of if I am a startup founder and I want to raise some money, what is it that I should pitch? What is it that I should talk about? What was the process? If you could guide us.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things in it, right? It's not a very straightforward answer. It is an iterative process. So you have to start pitching to understand what questions are coming your way, and then try to find answers to those questions. So जब हमने शुरू किया था, fortunately we started while we were still at our jobs, and one primary question that comes is, why should a patient trust you?
Yes.
Right. मेरा डॉक्टर बोल रहा है, मैं उसको 10 साल से जानता हूँ. Why should I change my brand? कुछ हो गया तो दवाई हेल्थ की बात है, right? So one of the first things we had to show was that the patient can and will trust us, right? So that your proof lies in the pudding, right? So you have to start getting. Initially we started off with surveys. We started sharing. This was one of the things that you learn in B school also quite a bit, right? Of understanding your consumer's mindset. So we started giving surveys of, let's say your medicines cost 2,000 rupees. If you were given a Cipla brand medicine for 1,000 rupees versus a generic medicine for 600 rupees, which one would you take? Will you take your doctor's prescription, or will you take Cipla's 1,000 rupee one, or a generic? Overwhelmingly 80% plus people said I would take the Cipla's 1,000 rupees, right? Because Cipla भी सुना हुआ है, Cipla भी पता है अच्छी कंपनी का है, मेरे को आधे रेट पे पड़ रहा है, and I'm able to save significantly. So that was our initial proof. But for some people that is enough to go ahead with. For some other people you require actual sales to start showcasing that information. So then we started putting in, we realized that for us to raise an institutional round, we need to have reasonable amount of traction, because what they look for is that, have you cracked it? Sure, people will buy it, but where will you tell them? How will you tell them that this can be done in a cost-effective manner? Because this requires education, right? This requires spending time. So अगर मैं किसी को बैठ के समझा रहा हूँ 10 मिनट तो वो समझ जाएगा, लेकिन मैं कितने कस्टमर को एक बार में 10 मिनट बैठ के समझा सकता हूँ? So who will do that? How will we effectively communicate it in a cost-effective manner so that you can scale? This is what investors look for, right? Have you reached a point where putting money behind you can help you grow, not help you figure out how to grow, right? You figured it out and now you're going to grow. So then those aspects come into picture. How your discovery process is. How does a customer get to know about you? Then the rest of the operational aspect of it. You've said, "Ye medicine le lo," but can you procure that medicine at a reasonable price? Can you sell it to the customer while still being unit economics positive? Or when do you recover that marketing cost? After how many sales? Is your customer coming back to you? अभी बेच दिया, अगर customer को वो दवाई सूट नहीं करी, just in case he says या उसके डॉक्टर ने बोला ये क्यों ले रहे हो, मैंने तो बोला नहीं था लेने को. So will the customer come back to you? Those are the kind of proofs that, or those are the kind of things that our investors were looking for, and that's what we started building. From through this iterative process, we learned where we are currently lagging. One question we still continue to struggle with from time to time is, what if another e-pharmacy decides to do this also. So so that's another aspect that you have to keep solving for, of how you will ring fence your competitive advantage, build a moat around it, and continue to deliver without getting your unit economics suffer because of competition. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, so, how did you go to the first investor, or how did you make a investor pitch? I'm asking, very basic questions, because a lot of people in this group are such that they are either looking for funding or they will be looking for funding 2 years from now. So let's say if we want to raise funding, what are the 3, 4, 5 steps that things we should have in mind?
Sure.
Another thing, just taking a step back, is it worthwhile raising funding for every business, or only a few businesses can raise funding?
No, so answering the second question first, right?
Yes.
It's definitely not worthwhile for every business to raise funding. It is only because you're not getting funds for free, right? You're giving away a part of your long-term equity in the company. So unless that, if you believe that funding can grow your pie fast to the scale where it justifies, मतलब तुम्हारा जो आज 50% इक्विटी है कंपनी में, आज अगर उसकी वैल्यू 50 लाख रुपए है, by getting funding, can you make that 50 lakh रुपए into 5 crores or 3 crores? Then it is worth taking that funding. That money will be utilized just to grow at a same pace or at a reasonable pace, just to get a valuation. It's definitely not worth raising money. And then it also comes down to what kind of money are you raising? Who are you raising the money from? Are you just getting money from people who will constantly keep looking for exits? कि बेच देते तुम्हारा competitor कुछ लेके आया, so you're willing to sell. Do they have a deadline that they are working with? कि I need to show returns in 3 years or 5 years or 7 years time frame. Or is that patient capital? Is that a capital which will continue to support you in the long run? Also, do they have capacity to come and invest in you in future rounds to keep supporting you? Because once they're invested in you, now they're part of the company. So as long as you're doing well, you don't have to keep selling to them that this will work, right? So as long as you're meeting your goals and you're growing and you're keeping them in the loop, do they have the wallet size to keep supporting you in the future rounds? So those are some of the things that you have to look for when you are going out to meet people. It's not कि भाई जो जिसके पास भी पैसा है दे दो. Initially, we also started thinking that way कि okay, we need money. It doesn't matter money is money.
Right.
But it doesn't play out that way in the long run. So you end up having people in your cap table who will create more problems than solve that way. So yeah, that's one aspect. What you were asking about deck, though, you have to start your journey with a business plan, right? That's one of the core thought processes, right? You can't start कि मैं business कर रहा हूँ, अब मैं देखता हूँ इसका plan कैसे बनेगा. So that business plan has to be in place. What was a very strange for us was, before we even started the business, investors wanted to know about exit strategy. Right? चालू भी नहीं किया है. And people want to understand how, because look at it from the lens, you have to start looking at it from a lens of an investor. They are looking to see how I can make money out of this. They don't get to make money till the time they exit. Right. So what is that exit strategy that you can provide to them? What are your ways of exiting either the whole business or providing them an exit by bringing in larger investors? So that's another aspect that we have to look for. But yes, business plan ki jo bhi basics hain, your understanding your market, understanding the competitive landscape, creating a financial projection of where you intend to be in the next 3 to 5 years. Those are some of the basics that you absolutely have to have in place. And I think whether you want to raise money or not, that's a fundamental that everybody should be doing to start off with. उसको सुंदर मत बनाओ deck को, लेकिन data तो होना चाहिए.
Right. Okay. So now there is a question coming, and guys, we will open for questions at 11:30. But this question was again my question also. So how did you approach InfoEdge? See, InfoEdge is for the people who don't know, Naukri.com. Sanjeev Bikhchandani is like the big name in this. So how did you manage to get funding from such a big name? Is it because you were at ISB? Is it because of your network, or just luck, or how exactly did it happen?
So partially it was luck. We because of the pedigree and the experience that we were coming with, we used to get a lot of incoming interest from day one. Even before we, जब तक हमने ऑफिस भी नहीं लिया था, we used to have initial meetings with VCs. We realized we are too small for a VC to even consider us, but the VC didn't know that till they met us, right? तब तक के business start भी नहीं किया था. VCs want to put in, those institutions typically want to put in at least $1 million and a half to make it worth their while to even put time in assessing it and managing that portfolio company. But we were too small. We were looking at that point. We were looking for a 3 crore raise. So, but fortunately for us, the pedigree helped. VNIT plus ISB, my co-founder who's a doctor, and the kind of experience we had at Abbott definitely helped us get inbound interest. But उसके अलावा हमने भी बहुत network के through लोगों को reach out किया था. InfoEdge happened through because they reached out to us. Yeah. So a lot of other players also reached out to us. InfoEdge ended up working out well for us that way. Yes, so we have been in touch. The important thing is to keep that momentum in the VC world and the investor world going. वो हमेशा वहाँ पर उनके like the people who get your model, but you are want to wait to see how you will do it, whether it will work or not. You have to make sure that you remain in their mind somewhere from time to time. So either you have them on LinkedIn connected and you're posting your progress on LinkedIn, or you're sending them at least a quarterly update of how the business is doing. That way you have to make sure that you remain in touch with them. With InfoEdge also, it took us about 9 months to close the round. They had a conversation, then there was nothing from them for about 2 months. Pata hi nahi tha. We sort of wrote it off. We didn't think that they're coming back. But then they were visiting Mumbai, and they just called us to set up a discussion. And from there, things just picked up. So yeah, I mean, every meeting you have to take seriously. It doesn't matter. Like in the beginning, when you start meeting some investors, you start feeling कि यार ये worthwhile है कि नहीं है, because a lot of them are just asking information. They don't tell you whether they're interested or not. You come out of the meeting thinking, did I waste my last 2 days preparing for this? But yes, no, it's not the case. There is something going on, especially for people who remain in touch with you. Yeah. So I would definitely say कि वो एक बहुत important चीज है. वो process को समझना ही बहुत important है. और whether you are ready for a VC investment or not is also very, very important to assess and understand quickly. So that is, I would say, an important aspect.
But how do you come on the radar of the VCs? Like
by reaching out, right? Through your network. I think we as an institution, VNIT has a fantastic network. And being able, या तो लोग VC funds में काम कर रहे होंगे, अगर वो नहीं होगा तो the entrepreneurs who have raised VC money, that goes a long way in the eyes of an investor. So if one of the portfolio company founders says कि ये company में आप एक बार check कर लो, this is a great company to look at. It goes a long way from an investor standpoint. This is like getting a referral when you are working at Google or Amazon and one of your top employees refers you. So you are bound to get an interview. So एक वो सबसे अच्छा तरीका है. We reached out to a lot of people through network. Cold emails, sometimes they work if you are able to draft them well and it falls in the eyes of the right people. But majority networks is the best way I would recommend people to approach investors. कोई ना कोई मिल जाता है, second, third connection जिसको बेशरम होके बस reach out करना होता है कि भाई मेरे को connect करा दे, and then it is up to you how you take it from there.
So I think one of the good things about this VNIT startup WhatsApp group is that now for others, maybe we can reach out to you for making us that referral.
Absolutely, right. I don't mind it. And even investors don't, as long as you are not recommending things which are not ready for them. If you're recommending companies, they are very happy to look at companies coming from founders, because founders have that edge also, right? One of the things that makes InfoEdge such a great investor, not just from a portfolio company standpoint, but also if you look at their scorecard in terms of their successful investments, is because Sanjeev himself has gone through that journey, right? So he knows what to look for in a founder, what to look for in a company in a little more detailed manner. And that's one of the things I loved about them. I called one of their company members, their team members late in the evening on a Saturday. I said, "Yaar, thoda sa kaam hai. I'm really sorry. Can I speak to you for 5 minutes?" He said, yes, absolutely. We have been told very clearly, listen, if your startup founders are working 7 days a week, you are required to support them on all 7 days a week, whatever it takes. ऐसा नहीं है कि Monday को बात करना या Tuesday को बात करना or anything like that. So that's, yeah, I mean, I don't think it should be a problem for me to recommend that.
Amazing. So Akshat, one last question from me to you, then I'll open it up for others because I think there are a lot of questions. So what is your vision? So how does this entire fundraising process start? So you start off a company, you reach out, you get a friends and family round, then after that you get an angel investor round. So can you, for the benefit of all the people here and who will be watching this episode later on, explain this entire process of fundraising and any important things that you think others should know about?
Sure. So there is no exact way this process works, right? It varies, and there are some fantastic people who have, like I was talking to you a little while ago, right, have raised money pre-product. So I can't really say कि ऐसे ही होना चाहिए. I can tell you how it worked for us, and people can derive their own conclusions from it. When your business is not very deep tech, or is not something that will take years to build before you can start seeing any traction on it, for something like us, you have to start with people who believe in you. So for us, it was my co-founder's family as well as my personal savings, where we started off with. We want to take it to a point where we can show that this change in brand is acceptable by consumers. What percentage, how retention happens. Once we got to that point, then we started looking at angel investors through the network. There also we connected with people who we knew jinko obviously a business samajh jayega, like pharma people, right? People who have been in the industry long enough. So that's how we started this journey. We connected with those people. We got a very good group of angel investors onboarded before we even connected with InfoEdge. So that group, showed trust in it much before anybody else did. But yes, of course, we wanted to close the full round. वो round decide करना बहुत जरूरी है. What do you require to get to a point where you are at least attractive enough for a VC to consider you? So वो level क्या है? What is that level of growth, level of revenues or customers that you need to acquire before you can go and start having those conversations? So वो amount उस basis पे determine करना बहुत जरूरी है, whether it is $500,000, 1 million, 2 million, etc., and then reaching out to the people accordingly. So yeah, but what other aspects that you need to look for in early stage rounds is pay a lot of attention to deal terms. I think most people ignore that. People think कि मैं equity कितनी दे रहा हूँ और मेरे को पैसे कितने मिल रहे हैं. That is just the basic part of it. Beyond that comes your complex deal terms, right? How much is the liquidity preference? There is such a thing called liquidity preference for people who don't know, where let's say tomorrow you raised 5 crores and you sold the company for 5 crores, right? Eventually it got liquidated for whatever reason. You will not get a penny. All the 5 crores will go to the investor. And let's say if the liquidity preference was 3x and you sold the company for 15 crores, but तुमने 5 करोड़ के लिए इन्वेस्टर को 20% ही दिया था, लेकिन उसने 3x लिक्विडिटी प्रेफरेंस अपने टर्म्स में डाला हुआ है, तो 15 करोड़ में भी कंपनी बिकेगी तो पूरे 15 करोड़ उसको जाएंगे before you even see a penny out of it. So that becomes a very important term. Then your governance terms, right? How many board seats? What kind of affirmative rights? There is such a thing called affirmative rights, which It doesn't matter whether your board like if your board even approves a decision, the investor has the right to veto it. So affirmative rights mein kya hai? What are the things that you are willing to give up as a right in terms of in terms of running your business? Then so yeah, there are many small things like that that come into picture. So my recommendation would be understanding deal terms, your drag along clause, tag along clause, all those things are there. So अगर समझ में नहीं आता है तो it's better to go through some videos and things like that to understand that it's not that complex anymore to learn these things. But it is very important to do that before you close around. So it may not be necessary to generate interest to learn these things, but once you have generated that interest, these things become, and then it becomes very fast, right? Once you have people who are interested in you, then they don't want to wait for you to learn things, agree on things, etc. Then you want to, they'll give you 2 days time, bhai ye hai, batao 2 din mein if you want it or not. So it's better to have this knowledge ahead of time.
So would you be kind enough to share some of these links and videos and all in the WhatsApp group so that, people who want to really raise money can, really benefit from this? Because some of this was known to me, but a lot of it is not known because you really don't get to see all these things unless you've actually gone that route.
Yeah.
So I think it's 11:30. So as promised, I would open this up for questions. Does anyone have a question here, or I have a lot of questions? Devashish, I think, is there. So you just can unmute yourself and ask the question. Shubham.
Yeah. Hello, Akshat. So, thanks for the kind session. I really loved it. So, I'll tell about my company. So, I just graduated from VNIT 2020 batch, and I'm working on my startup Experienza. So, we are working on robotic floor cleaners, which can mop and clean your floors without your intervention. And the best part is you don't have to buy the product upfront. So, you need to just subscribe for the product, and it's there at your home, just like how Made works, and all the warranties are covered by us. So at this stage, after 8 or 9 months into business, but right now what we are trying to do is export some products and understand the business. Like if our business model is working, people are really loving it. So for that purpose, to export that product, we are looking for money out there. So we're looking for a couple of options like Mudra loan and stuff. So is an angel investment really good option for us? And because it's a really risky thing, right? Because when we get products, we have some orders, but we are not sure like how it will go, if the retention will go far. So it's a good idea to go for angel investment. And what should we look for? Like, what could be the questions would look like for us?
Yeah, so Shubham, on this, I think the primary question that will be asked is what will be the business plan when you are exporting this? Are you selling these products to other countries?
No, right now when we no, sorry, we are importing the product and giving it on subscription. I'm
Okay.
really sorry for that.
Yeah, so then it's your business, right? You have to. The question would be what kind of subscribers you'll be generating. How will your revenue model evolve with this, and when will be the payback period for each equipment that you are importing, right?
So, but when you're importing it, the cost is really high. But when you plan to manufacture it over in India, the cost will be 1/3 of it.
Right.
So would be ready to take that risk, because this product will be costly as 3 times of what you're getting, and the buyback period and the will be very hard. So that's basically the money which will go in just for experimentation, honestly speaking.
Yeah, so if you are looking at it from an experiment perspective, it's very difficult to convince somebody that join me in this experiment unless you are really making the risk and reward ratio worthwhile, right? So if you go with this as a proposition, you might and if somebody even buys it, then it will be difficult to get them to give you a reasonable valuation for it. I would recommend कि एक बार थोड़ा सा try कर लो. If you are able to do it with a little bit of debt financing and get some visibility of the payback period on this, then it is a lot easier to say, now I want to scale this, so I need money to scale this.
Yeah, got it. So because the idea behind getting importing product was because we are developing our own product and we wanted to get those feedback from customer directly.
That's a great idea. That's a great way to test the market, right? Because before you start investing in manufacturing the product in-house, it's always good to know whether there is a market for it or not. Because the challenge in India is labor cost is not very high. So when you're trying to replace labor with a machine, you have to make sure that there is a large enough market for it. Who
Yes,
will be your customers? How, like, what is the willingness to pay? So that's one thing that we didn't cover, Kartik, but it's very, very important to understand pricing for your product, right? Whether it's a product or a service, most people don't give enough time to this, right? You're launching this, you will have to experiment with pricing. What price, at what price point you can generate the right amount of demand, and then it is worthwhile or not, right? Because और वो pricing ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि मेरा cost इतना है तो मैं उस पर 10% लगा करके आगे बेच देता हूँ, right? There are so many ways to do pricing. You need to the best way to do is value based. You have to understand what is the perceived value in a customer's mind for this product. So will it be compared against a maid service? Can you take into account the safety of this, that this product will obviously not steal from you or not take a holiday when on a busy day and things like that, right? So what is the perceived value for the customer, and putting that right pricing in place will can completely change your subscription model, right? So make sure you put enough focus on that.
yeah, that is why we wanted to import product and understand like.
Great idea to do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Shubham. Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks, Akshat, for telling us. Can we go to the next question? I think I saw some. Shubham, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, okay. Next one, Pranav, that's Kamlesh, I think. Kamlesh, do you have a question for Akshat?
Hi, Kartik. I just joined. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay. No, sorry. Yeah, so that's why I saw you. Okay. So, Akshat, I'll ask you the next question in that case before someone else comes up with a question. So, you just spoke about value-based pricing and how exactly customer look at the value. So, what kind of marketing did you guys run to understand all these kinds of things? I know in our private conversations you have told me about it, but I would want it to be shared with the wider group.
Yeah. So we started with very basic, just me and my co-founder going at jogging parks in the morning and distributing pamphlets and trying to speak to patients at that point of time. We realized that our market is chronic patients. So chronic patients largely are above a certain age and are more likely to come for a morning walk versus a 15-year-old or a 20-year-old, right? So that was the logic that we used, and we went there. उसमें भी थोड़ी बहुत testing हुई. One of the places we thought the best place to find patients is outside a hospital, right? So हम लोग hospital के बाहर जाके खड़े हो गए थे. 2-3 hospitals के बाहर जाके खड़े हुए. What we realized is that while every person who we were interacting with was a chronic patient, the problem is they are not in a mindset to learn in a hospital, right? जब वो hospital उनको जाना पड़ रहा है, तब उनकी हालत खराब है या उनके किसी घरवाले की हालत खराब है. So that's not the place where they want to stand and discuss about a new product with anybody. So that's why morning jogging parks worked very well for us. We got a lot of initial feedback from the customers there, and then we also rolled out a couple of surveys. To like a friend of mine has a dance school with over 400 students. तो उनके सारे parents को भेज दिया वो survey. Then a couple of other places in the network we sent those surveys to. But at the end of the day, getting a survey is very different from somebody paying you for it. So the real insight comes when a paying customer actually pays you for it, right? So that's where your experiments actually begin. So we did that starting in August last year. Yeah. So that's when we reached out to people through Facebook. We tried different communication strategies, small budgets. We kept experimenting. We even experimented with our logo. Fortunately, now Google allows you to do that really well. You can pretty much have different logos for different people who is trying to download the app and give you information which is leading to larger. This thing you have to keep doing to understand what works and what doesn't work from a customer standpoint.
Okay, so we have a question from Aniket. Aniket sent it to me on chat, but Aniket, why don't you ask it yourself?
Sure. Hi Akshat, Aniket here.
Hi.
Yeah. So I'm running Health on Way clinic based out of Pune. Yeah, we are focused on 90-day programs for chronic patients. So diabetes care, cardiac care, cholesterol, weight loss. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are specifically what we focus on. So I think you've been active in the VC side. You've been interacting with multiple VCs. So, what is the VC set that I should approach to start with? We'll be, looking to fundraise in the like 6 to 9 months. So, right now is a good time to start, getting to VC.
Absolutely. So what's the question?
Starting the conversations. I've had a series of funds we've raised from the RPG for the previous venture. We have raised up to $1 million. But now, again, starting from scratch with this health on way clinic concept. So which are the top VCs in healthcare, specifically chronic patients focused, or someone who's focused on teleconsultation as one of the key interests? Who do you feel is a good focus or a good starting point?
I have a list here. Let me send you some names. I think our list is very similar to what you are as well. So let me shoot the names of people that we researched on who would be a good fit in this market. So yeah, I'll send it to you offline. It's a little bit of a long list. We have about 20.
Surely. Perfect. And one more question that I had was, reaching out to chronic patients online, right, through Facebook and ads is a bit tricky because काफी सारे words जो है blocked होते हैं. Medicine is blocked, diabetes is blocked, right? So it's a hard time to actually sponsor ads with all these keywords.
Yeah.
So have you been, substantially into online ads? Have you been able to crack that? Because honestly, we've been struggling for a while to, crack that up. कि कौन से keywords चलेंगे, are they ads वहीं पे reject हो जाते हैं, and then you're not able to get that messaging as clearly as you want because of all these limitations.
So we also constantly keep getting ads rejected, right? That's a very standard problem that we have. But fortunately, there are some that keep working. I genuinely don't have a good answer to this of why certain ads are getting rejected. And we have actually tried interacting with both Google and Facebook representatives on this. A lot part of it is driven by an algo. No human being even looks at it. So whenever we actually went and got the review done, those ads got by a human being, those ads got approved. So it's important to start learning how to what are those keywords that are constantly pulling your ads down and limiting your audience or are constantly getting rejected. But yeah, this is an ongoing problem for I think everybody who's trying to play in the healthcare space.
True.
Recently, one of the affiliate or one of the other marketing companies that we wanted to, another platform that we wanted to do marketing on, they straight away rejected us, saying that we don't that we don't allow ads for prescription medicines in any form.
Correct.
Quora, like we wanted to start doing this on Quora.
Right.
People can, if somebody asks questions about how I can save on medicines or what are the alternatives available for me and things like that. But yeah, they just completely reject it. So that's an ongoing industry problem. I think till the time some of these online pharmacy and telemedicine gets very clear regulations in place, this will remain a challenge that we will have to work with.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't give you a better answer on this. I wish I had an answer.
No, perfect. So Akshat, one of the things that I would recommend is we should, keep sharing the learnings as we move so that, it can benefit either of us.
Yeah, we were scheduled to connect, but it didn't work out that time. We should definitely do that. I think, you started with a similar journey.
Correct. So I think we should do it this week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Guys, in fact, I want to broaden the horizon. We all should keep connecting, and also some of these things are they cut across different kind of industries, like marketing. How do you go with digital marketing? So I had my own personal class with Akshat, and that's what got us started. So in fact, if the group likes, I think, in the startup WhatsApp group, we should actually share these ideas, and we'll be more than happy to get. I think within the group itself, we have a lot of experts across different things. So some of the best practices, I think, can be shared. So I think this is a great outcome of this. So Aniket and Akshat, I think we should definitely keep this going ahead. Can we move to the next question? If there is nobody else with a question, I have a question otherwise. I think I come better prepared than others. Just joking there. No? Okay. So my question, in the meanwhile, others can frame a question. So Akshat, now that you have raised money, you've gotten a Series A round, how does the journey look from here? Are the VCs really, I mean, I know there's going to be no politically incorrect answer that you can give on this forum, but whatever in the realms of being civil, can you tell us what kind of pressures are there once you raise money from someone else? Because when you work for yourself, you can decide, I want to take the next month off, I don't want to do anything. I mean, of course you can't, but you can decide what projects you want to really what projects you want to prioritize over others. So when you get an investor onboarded, is there interference? What kind of interference can you expect? I'm fairly certain, because the moment someone becomes a stakeholder, that person brings with him or her his own perspective, and even though you don't think of it, they don't think of it as interference, it might end up being interference. So I mean, sorry for asking this politically incorrect question, but that's exactly why this forum is there for.
No, it comes back to what we were discussing in the beginning, right? Getting the right people to back you becomes the key part here. So for us, fortunately, so far, performance pressure to aa jata hai, no doubt about it, right? When before I could take days off for my anniversary and this and that, now you don't get those options, because and it's not because somebody is constantly checking whether you are working or not. It's more because now you feel you have a responsibility to bring more build shareholder value, right? So you yourself have that mental pressure that I need to keep improving and keep doing better than what I did the day before. So wo to aa jata hai. But getting the right people can actually work the other way entirely. So for us, the people that we have on board right now, we have about six investors at this point of time. All six of them have only been adding value. We have not had interference sort of situations. Yes, you have to update everybody on the progress. That is the requirement. That is sort of a minimum expectation that everybody carries. At least मेरे को बता दो कहाँ तक पहुँच गया है business in this last month. What all have you guys done? Where are you struggling, etc. But more importantly, we actually have investors who came back to us and said, listen, in your next 12 months plan, assign us responsibilities, things that you want us to work on, things that you want us to solve for. Like, let's say I'm struggling with getting doctors for teleconsultation. One of our investors is a very high profile doctor in Bombay hospital. So he said, I will bring you doctors. That's on me to find the right doctors, get them onboarded. Possibly you can also send me the recordings of teleconsultation so I can help them train better of where they're lacking, etc. So it can go the other way. Your idea always should be to get people who will not just give money, but to also bring those additional insights of how to run a business, because it's tough, right? There are a lot of decisions that you're making for the first time, and there is no clear answer on it. So getting the right people will allow you to bounce off ideas, learn from their experience and grow. So far our experience on that side has been purely positive. We have not had those issues, but I have heard from people who have run into those issues where you don't really have a choice but to keep humoring the people that you're dealing with till the time you can get them an exit. So yeah, it's important. They are part of the company now. ऐसा नहीं है कि पैसा देकर के वो भूल जाते हैं कहाँ गए. Every month you have touch points, and when you're talking to an investor, you have to make sure that you are also evaluating will I feel happy talking to this person on a frequent basis or not, or will it only lead to more stress in my life?
Okay. Another question before we go and take the next question from you. So this is like slightly unrelated to the flow and all, but again, very basic single question. What kind of mindset change do you think is required when you want to go the funded route? There must have been certain changes in mindset that you would have made, that from a corporate mindset to a ownership mindset. I think a lot of us already know this, but we would want to know from you, what are the mindset changes that you would recommend others so that they can, get benefited from your experience?
Yeah, so I think from for a funding, if you want to be a funded startup with, if you're taking that route of possibly getting to that exponential hockey stick growth path, right? The You have to build your company, your startup like a company. It's no longer about just मेरा ये idea है मैं try कर रहा हूँ कहीं तो शायद चल जाएगा तो मेरे को थोड़े पैसे मिल जाएंगे. It's not a business. It's a company. It's a full-fledged company, and you have to take into account those factors, right? Whether you're legally structured correctly or not, whether you have the right level of compliance in terms of secretarial ROC compliance to accounting compliance, whether you have the right team in place to take you to those levels or not. Whether या कि यार मेरा दोस्त है खाली बैठा है चल तू भी मेरी मदद कर दे. That's a very short-sighted approach to the problem, right? You may not be willing to pay the person, but you have to get the right person and give him ESOPs or equity or some sort to incentivize the person. But it's important to get the right people, because your early people is the one who's going to build your company. So that becomes a very crucial part of forming a startup which is expecting to get funded. So it's like a lot of startups start with a hobby, but it cannot work like a hobby if you're looking to raise money, right? It has to be a company. So yeah, that's what I would say, that start thinking back like a corporate, except for the bureaucracies of a corporate world. Everything else you pretty much have to start imagining why those layers exist and what are the key roles those layers play, right?
Okay. I think Chinmay has a question. Chinmay, are you there? Network issue. I think he's facing some network issue. Let him be back. Okay. So again, I'll only ask that question. So Akshat, now that we've spoken about marketing, we have spoken about fundraising, we have spoken about the right kind of attitude and all. What do you think? How do you build in that culture? Kamlesh also has raised his hand, so he will go to his question. So how do you build this culture in a company? You start off. We've always worked in some or the other kind of a corporate. Now, as a startup founder, once you start hiring people, your culture building becomes a very important thing that people talk about. Now, is this really as important, or it's just like, fashionable to talk about?
No, I think it is, and we have personally struggled with it also from time to time, right? Because I was reading one of the posts that Ankur Variku had shared, and I really connected with it immediately, where he talks about how when you're a leader, right, you are looked at as a celebrity. People who you hire follow what you do. Every action of yours is monitored, is closely scrutinized, right? So if you let things fall through the cracks, that becomes your company's culture. If you are the first one in and the last one out, you will see a lot more people motivated to work hard in the company. So how you deal with mistakes, how much you celebrate success versus how much you penalize failure, these things really matter. I think it's not a faff word at all, especially if you start growing, right? And that's one of the things we struggle with. One of our verticals, which we started as a contractual vertical. We didn't want to hire those people because it took a long time to hire that skill set. We hired them on contract, and they came with their previous company's culture, right? And because they had no career path with us, they never really adopted to our culture. So any new hires that we internally hired and put it in that mix has now been completely transformed into that culture. It's very difficult to get them back to कुछ relationships transactional बन जाती है. Your key roles start becoming कि मेरा 9 बजा था मैं 5 बजे वापस चला जाऊँगा, right? मेरे महीने की 2 छुट्टी है मैं ले रहा हूँ, ऐसा हो गया. So those things you absolutely have to start thinking from the beginning, and I think the only people who can do anything about it is the leaders, and then making sure that you find people who are in line with your thought process, who will build on your thinking about culture rather than create resistance towards it. बहुत जरूरी है. It's a critical component, I think.
Okay, Kamlesh, over to you. Kamlesh has a question. And Akshat, you might remember Kamlesh as fondly as you remember me.
Hi Akshat, how are you?
Hi Kamlesh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, good. Sorry, yaar, I joined late. I'm not sure if this question is already asked, but I'll anyway ask it. So, one of the problems or really, daily life issue that we guys struggle with is hiring the right person and getting him into your line of thinking, first of all, to get him to deliver to what you want, and right amount of delegation and all that. And then somehow, if it doesn't turn out to be a right person for that post, and you have made a probably a hiring mistake, you have to take a call in terms of getting rid of him. Any experiences, anything that you can share, because there's no rule here. I mean, everybody, it's situational, right? It's always situational. But any experience that you had, or what, how did you deal with it, something like that you can share?
Surely, right? So I think एक गलती क्या हो जाती है, because in a startup world with limited resources, one mistake that we made was we wait till the last moment to hire someone for a role, right? ऐसा लगता है जब तक जरूरत नहीं है तब तक उस पे फोकस जाता नहीं है, because 50 और चीजें हैं जिस पे फोकस करना पड़ेगा, right? So and when you absolutely require to fill a role, that time finding that right person at the right salary and making sure that they join you in the time frame that you're looking for gets very, very difficult. And that is a struggle that we deal with on a regular basis even now. So if you're like तो उस टाइम पर यही होता है कि it's a hit or a miss. Either you compromise on salary, कि now I have to find someone in a short period of time, so I may have to pay a little more to find the right person. And that becomes a perpetual problem, right? Because that your salary is not a one-time thing. You're going to keep paying that forever and keep giving increments on that forever. Or you hire a person who is not exactly fitting the skill set for you. So I think the best judgment call that you can make over there is possibly compromise on skill set, but not on attitude as much. These skill sets can be acquired, and that's one thing that we learned a little through a hard way. शुरू में हमने क्या किया? We started because we didn't want to spend too much time learning every skill set. We hired people who had done those things for years.
Correct.
But what that meant was, because we were trying to hire people within a budget, we hired some people who were just not. There's a reason why they were coming in a budget, right? उनको क्यों, despite having the right skill set, why they were not getting very high, why they were not very highly paid, because they had some either attitude issue or some other basic problem that we should have identified, which we didn't have time to identify. So yes, firing people becomes tough because you're setting the wrong culture. If you are quickly hiring and firing people, don't feel secure in the company. So the best thing to do over there is to anticipate a little ahead of time and start putting in the effort. It is very frustrating to put that effort कि यार मेरे को 2 महीने 3 महीने लग गए हैं to fill a role, and then some. And in our world, हमारे startup world भी ऐसा है कि there is no commitment. लोग offer accept करके भी 1 महीने का notice लेकर के भी फिर आते नहीं हैं, last minute पे join नहीं करेंगे. So those things you kind of have to start incorporating. But yeah, if the person is not fitting, we had to get rid of a couple of people very, very early within the first month of the hire, which was very tough, and it starts creating rumors even in a small company like ours. People started thinking कि अरे job safe नहीं है. Already there are insecurities when you are joining a startup, right? And then when you start witnessing these things happen, it creates a further negative culture in the company. तो उसको बहुत tactically manage करके लोगों को clearly, everybody in the company should know why this person was let go, so that those speculations are not created कि ये लोगों को पता ही नहीं है क्यों hire करके fire कर रहे हैं.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I like your point of look at the attitude, not the skill set. Skill set can be developed, but attitude remains. We have had recently a bad experience in terms of person, and then we were brainstorming in terms of what went wrong, and we realized that okay, attitude was the biggest problem, and we had to let go that person. It was very bad experience overall for everybody. My question, second question is, is there a way to, you have a interview with a person, you meet him, you maybe twice, thrice. Okay, is there a way to find out whether the person is of a right attitude? I mean, again, the question is, it's situational, it's person dependent, it's vague question, but is there something that you follow to find out?
So we started doing two things, right? Ek to, we were struggling with two parts. One was we were, prioritizing experience over aptitude. So we stopped doing that by giving pretty much everybody a small aptitude test. So that solved a little bit from a smartness perspective. Is this person just experienced, or is this person smart enough to learn something new? Because every startup is trying to do something new, right? And it requires you to keep learning. So that was one aspect. And I think behavioral questions so far is the only proxy. इसका बहुत clear answer तो मेरे पास भी नहीं है. But what we started doing is we started giving some situational questions, some behavioral questions. Like, possibly a disgruntled customer has this issue. How do you deal with this? And we started putting some stress over there. We have done that with a few interviews already, where we try to create a stressful environment for the employee in the interview to see if the person still remains calm, if the person is still motivated to solve the problem, or is he like nahi hoga. And surprisingly, बहुत सारे लोग give up कर देते हैं कि नहीं होगा.
Yeah.
So you very quickly learn that these are not the people who will survive in the high pressure startup world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. It's great, Akshat.
So, yeah, Kamlesh.
Sorry, I was just saying it was great seeing you after so long.
Yeah,
I remember you. I mean, from the college days, I can see you on that bike, the blue color ka bike tha tumhara. I can remember that. Great.
Thank you.
So, Akshat, the last question, I think, unfortunately, there are no current VNIT students. This is open, and we should have some. I don't know if any of the recent grads can tell their juniors, because they can also benefit from this. But what will be your advice to someone who is starting up or looking to start up in the next couple of years? What are the top 3 or 5 things that you would recommend to them that about being successful in this world?
In general or related to this? So one thing that I would say is, and I've always strongly believed in this, is that why should you be doing this business, right? What gives you the edge versus the next person, right? So I think it is very, very important to understand, if when you're getting into a line of business, why you, right? Why is Maruti not also making phones? Right, they have certain expertise and they are leveraging on that expertise. In this world, you absolutely have to have some competitive advantage. And in the start of a company, it's you. There are no resources, there is no expertise built, so it's all about you, right? So while you are motivated, great. There will be a lot of other motivated people who are willing to eat your lunch. So what gives you that edge in the business that you are trying to get into? Right? What is that depth of understanding or experience that you have in that? That's definitely, I think, one of the questions that one should ask ourselves. Second, I would say finding the right team or finding the right co-founders. Right? It's when we were starting up, we used to read a lot about this, that over 50% of the startups fail because of internal conflicts. Now that's a big number, right? Because बाहर तो किसी ने कुछ किया ही नहीं. We keep thinking about whether customer will buy or not, this, that, but internally misalignment of either power or equity or roles can significantly derail a startup, and you keep focusing internally on how to get that fixed. So getting those people early, ये हम लोगों को ISB में भी सिखाया था कि when you are starting a company, get a contract made between founders. Okay. It's not that difficult. Ready-made contracts are available on the internet now to download and sign. The key is to get those questions answered. There is no value in the company yet. Because once there is value, it will be difficult to get alignment on those things. So I would say getting those answers very, very important, and getting alignment ahead of time is very critical in that period of time. Third, I would say, just keep reading a lot about how businesses are run, especially if you are just graduating and you don't have a business background as such. It's a very difficult world to be in. Understanding how is very, very critical. So keep reading about business things, and learn from those things as much as you. It's not just theory. Those are all the practical experiences that you can get through a book itself. So yeah.
I think we've already passed 1 hour. And are there any other questions, or I would want to close with this question? On your WhatsApp DP, we see you posing with the Prime Minister. How do you get to meet the Prime Minister? Is this because of
well?
Is this something else?
No, you marry well. So it's no, for starting, and honestly, there is not a lot to give credit for at this point of time. Still just at a starting phase, but the reason why I'm in the startup now than I was, one of the reasons I wasn't there before was I didn't have enough support in the family to go for it. And I think it's very, 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 very probably the most important thing before you think about anything else. Getting a family to support it, because you can't run it alone. It's impossible to keep getting pulled in multiple directions from family and friends and health, and still trying to run a company, right? So my wife has been a very big supporter in every way, right? She's been pretty much running the house for the last 2 years while I've been completely focusing on the startup, and being understanding from a time perspective, because your time will go in building a business. वो दूसरी चीजों को time देने में difficulty आएगी. So yeah, that way I think. So yeah, for me, for the Modi ji story, my father-in-law was a bureaucrat, and he was a bureaucrat in Delhi, so he had some very good connects with people there. So Modi ji could not come to our wedding, so he said that whenever we are in Delhi next, we should come and take his blessings. So we ended up there.
Okay, so another person who could not come to your wedding is me. So whenever you are in Nagpur next, come at my home and take blessings. I'm not as big as Modi at all, but I thought that will be funny way to end this. So thank you so much, Akshat, for your time and sharing your views. Thanks everyone for joining and spending your Saturday morning. I hope we could answer some of your questions. If there are any other questions or queries or any suggestions about this, please feel free to ping us on the WhatsApp group. And thank you, Akshat. We wish you all the very best. Hopefully when we interview you the next, you would be like 1,000 crore company or beyond that.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Okay. Bye everyone. I think the next episode we might have a different host. I think the guest is already decided. If not, you can send us your nominations on the WhatsApp group. Let's keep in touch on the WhatsApp group. Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.